No, the title doth not deceive thee. I have indeed took the plunge and started watching Game of Thrones. And I just finished the first season last night. I actually spent a good portion of my day yesterday at the ER. Don't worry, I'm okay. Stop panicking. Sit down. I'm okay. Um, yeah, and most of that time, Loki, I just was like sitting in the hospital bed and I watched Game of Thrones. Like I got to finish it. I've been so busy doing so much, running around that I haven't had time to like play games, or watch anything like new in particular. But I finally got some time yesterday to finish off that first season of Game of Thrones, and let me just say, I liked it. It was better than I thought. My best friend, uh, so initially he and I bonded over Star Wars. Okay, Star Wars is kind of like, um, that's how he and I became best friends. Honestly, we spent so much time talking about Star Wars, how it's our favorite franchise. Honestly, probably our favorite, like specifically how the Clone Wars is like our favorite, series of all time, and that's one of the ways that we bonded the most. And so about like 2 years ago, he came up to me and he was like, Isaac, listen, you gotta get on Game of Thrones. And I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll keep on the road. And he was like, no, it's pretty good so far. And I was like, whatever. And obviously, it's been this cultural boogeyman for the entirety of my adult life. I have only ever heard people be like, "Oh, Game of Thrones, this is the best show." Obviously, okay, content. Obviously, like everyone says, Game of Thrones is like the greatest show of all time, barring that last season. Like they pulled a How I Met Your Mother, or I guess How I Met Your Mother pulled a Game of Thrones, where in that last season they butchered the show basically. Like Stranger Things obviously did with this last season, but just not as bad as what I heard, from Game of Thrones. So I figured, I was like, yeah, I don't know, but it's been this cultural boogeyman, this legitimate like behemoth in the industry space, right? About how great Game of Thrones is, and anyway, and my buddy, it was like, listen, man, you gotta get on. And so then about a year and a half ago, he was like, dude, it's better than Star Wars, and I was like, all right, now you're going a little bit too far. Let's pump those brakes. Okay, let's hold those horses. Let's sit back in our seats and let's take a break. And he was like, nah, man. Like, I swear to God, Jon Snow is my favorite character in all of fiction. And I was like, okay. And anyway, so and he finally got me to watch it, right? Essentially, like about 2, 3 months ago, basically, I went over, I visited him, and he was like telling me about it, and he sat down and he explained to me the lore of of like the start of Game of Thrones, like where the part of the story you're thrust into, right? And I was like, whatever, 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 and I put it off. So finally, like a month and a half ago, basically, one night I finally had some free time, and I was like, shoot, I really want a new show, and he was like, all right, here you go. He gave me his login, and I sat down and I started watching Game of Thrones. And what I can say is, I like it. Obviously, I'm on a season 2, episode 1, so I literally just finished the first season last night in bed, and I can confidently say, like it's good. It's definitely better than I thought it was gonna be. And I don't necessarily have any too big of complaints per se. I think for the most part, the show is paced pretty well. And I'll get a little more into it because I basically just wanted to yap about it today because my channel, I can do what I want. But like legitimately, I just wanted to yap about my thoughts on the first season. I kind of want to do this for every season that I watch, give my thoughts, keeping, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. I don't really have very many complaints off. I would like to get my complaints out of the way and then get into positives, but I don't really have any major complaints. I would say my one major complaint, right? And this is like everything, pretty much almost everything I have to say is positive, right? I'm gonna get into how like I hate characters, but I think that's a positive. I think it's a really good thing when a storyteller or a writer or director or something like that can make you hate a character in the universe, like make you genuinely not like them, and I think that's really cool. So I'm extremely, so I have no complaints that way. I think the only complaint that I really have is I do think that um it's there are some things that I wish were shown more. I'm gonna move the mouse away from that so it doesn't cut the video on accident. But I will say, like, I wish that some things were shown more, right? So for example, towards the end of the season, Robb Stark is leading an army against the Lannisters. They've been at war for a long time, for a couple months at this point, at least where I'm at. I'm pretty sure it's been a couple months. And you don't really see any you don't see any of it. And in fact, like I'm pretty sure it's episode 9, at the end of episode 9, or sometime in episode 10, Tyrion is like strapped up, getting ready to ride into that first, like the, or maybe not the first major battle, but one of the first like major deciding battles, right? Where Robb sends his 2,000 men basically as a diversion so he can attack Jaime, right? And they capture Jaime in that offense. So it was a really great strategy, great move, go Robb. Um, but um Tyrion gets knocked out, and then you don't see any of the fighting. You don't see any of that. And I feel like that's a really big conflict that they were leading up to in the season, and I feel like we didn't get any of that. We didn't get any action from that, no real like closure. We didn't really get to see any of what some of these characters were talking about on that front line. And so I think for me that was maybe a complaint that I had. Also, I wish they were maybe a little more clear with how much time has passed, but I like that ambiguity in there as well. So maybe not a complaint, but more something like at least knowing exactly where we're at now is pretty interesting. Or is pretty, yeah, like I would maybe like a little more clarity on, but for the most part, I think that's pretty solid. Um, um, that might be all my complaints. It's not a lot. Like none of them are major complaints either. I would say maybe, and again, maybe I would like a little bit more, some more, dialogue or some more screen time for certain characters, maybe. But I think for the most part, it makes sense. I just think that a lot of stuff does happen, and so you really have to pay attention because if you don't pay attention, you're gonna be lost and whatever. But that might be my only, yeah, that might be my complaints. So yeah, so essentially, how this season kind of starts essentially is we meet, we meet the whole Stark family up in the north, and the Starks are so far like the only good people. Everyone in this show sucks. It's kind of what I gather. So, but you meet the Starks essentially. I hate all of the Lannisters. I hate them all. They're all horrible people, like low key. The prince being an incest baby, killing Ned. Ned, I will say, I haven't actually been this sad from a character dying in a long time. Okay, spoilers, by the way. Spoiler warning. Poor Ned, bro. I was honestly really, really hoping that when he got up on that pylon, I think is what it's called, but when he got up, or the pedestal, whatever the fuck, when he got up in the town square and he was, gets beheaded, I was really hoping that I like the creative decision for his character to choose his family over being a soldier, right? Because he was like, I learned how to die as a soldier a long time ago, and so like I'm glad that he ends up choosing to be like a father, where he's like, okay, I'll sacrifice my soldier honor so that my kids I can still have a chance to grow up with my kids. Fuck the prince for killing him in the first place, or for killing him there. Like I like that. I thought that was interesting. I think that adds some depth to his character. But I was also, part of me was really hoping that he would sit there, realize that this king is mad, and realize that like he's a warrior, he's a soldier. He knows that Joffrey's a mad king. He knows that he's the descendant of one of the worst families in the realm. I'm a little frustrated that Ned. Maybe this is another complaint that I have, not with Ned's character per se, but I feel like his death was, it just kind of happened and they moved on. And I get that that's kind of the point of the show, and maybe I'm only having this complaint, maybe I'm a little biased just because I liked Ned a lot, and I'm a little sad that he's gone. So that's fully possible. I'm well aware that is what happened, but part of me was also really hoping that when he was there, he was thinking about saying the thing so he could see his daughters, and he took one look at the king and was like, yeah, no, you're evil. And he was like, yeah, he's a product of incest. She slept with her brother, they had him, and just turned the whole thing on its head essentially. And then the whole realm maybe would have had like an uproar or something. I kind of wish he went that direction, but I do like the character where he's graduated or slowly come away from, I'm a soldier, or from being a soldier to now I'm a father, right? And if I have a chance to live longer for my kids, even if my soldier's honor gets thrown under the rug, or dragged through the mud or whatever, like he's still a dad, and he's choosing that fatherhood, that father title over the soldier title. And I like that end to his character, but I am just still sad he's gone. And part of me really does, because I hate that king. I hate the king. I hate Joffrey. I hate fucking, what's her, Cersei? Is that her name? I hate her. I hate Jaime. I like Tyrion a lot. I don't like Stannis, I'm pretty sure is his name. There's so many names in this show. But yeah, so that made me sad. I was gonna maybe do like a plot synopsis, but honestly, so much happened in this season that I don't think I'm gonna bother. I'm just kind of ranting. But I did really like it. Big highlight of the show for me, obviously, I think this is pretty common with everyone, is Jon Snow. I like Jon a lot. I think the Wall is really interesting. Obviously, I've had a little bit of spoiled for me. I mean, it's a cultural behemoth, right? It's not like I'm unaware that some of the stuff. I've seen so many clips from Game of Thrones like over the years, basically on TikTok, and because I've seen so many of those clips, like I've had certain things spoiled for me, like Daenerys' brother's death. I saw that on TikTok like a year ago. The being Daenerys being poisoned by that dude, or trying to be poisoned by that guy in the first season. I saw that on TikTok also like a year ago. I will say a lot of stuff happened in that first season that I thought was in later seasons, and that's kind of refreshing to see because it looks like I didn't get much spoiled for me, right? So that's pretty cool. Um, what else? What else? What else? Am I really thinking about the Daenerys with the dragons? I will say this may be actually another complaint that I have now that I'm just like talking about stuff. I didn't particularly love the. Maybe I liked it. I don't know, but essentially, Daenerys' husband Cal, right, takes a small injury, and I like that in this, show. Um, like what I like in this show is that like there is some elements of realism there. There's a dirty, gross, uncleaned blade, even though Cal got the wound inflicted on him by choice, right? Like he chose to kind of move into the blade and get cut because obviously he's trying to show dominance and power in that fighting circle, He's trying to tell everyone, I am top dog, I can take a bit of pain, whatever, and then he kills the guy, right? And I'm speaking with the assumption that you know what's happening because I couldn't even begin to describe what's happening if I tried. Okay, so if you've seen Game of Thrones season one, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you don't. Anyway, so then the woman, the witch that Daenerys saved because she didn't want this person to be raped or which go Daenerys, okay, Daenerys W, but like she wanted to save her from being a slave basically, and so then she's like, oh my gosh, can you please help me save and treat the wound that Cal has now acquired? And she's like, sure. And so then I'm pretty sure what the plot was supposed to be saying is that this witch, because they had just burned down her home and her family, and she's like, Daenerys, you didn't save me, fuck you, like your people just murdered my people, like, you know what I mean? So I think that like she wants revenge, right? And so Daenerys tried to do the right thing, didn't work out for her, but she ends up not even cleaning the wound for Cal, but ends up actually helping to poison him or help him deteriorate, right? Make it worse for Cal. And I think that's the whole point there. And she does say, right at the end of the season, like, your people, doesn't matter that you tried to save me, you guys fucked me over, you guys burned down my church, the gods that I worship. I'm going to make sure you feel the same way. And so in the process of trying to save Cal, she uses like sorcery, like, witch magic, right? And I like this, but also I think this is the first time in the show, and obviously my best friend, he did kind of spoil some of it for me, right? Like there is some sorcery there, that wall, night walkers, right? Like the dead, so I've had some of that spoiled for me, and obviously I understand there's dragons, obviously it's a fictional world, right? So it makes sense to me why like there would be magic. I just think its introduction felt a little strange for me. So she ended up killing Cal, or turning him into like a comatose state, basically keeping him alive but like not alive, right? Like his body's breathing, he's alive but he's not alive, right? So I think that was the whole point. So she killed Daenerys's like born child, or unborn, whatever, child dead. Cal's also like dead, and then Cal's horse is also dead, which I think is also pretty significant, right? That horse is dead, Cal is gone, he's no longer a great warrior, he's a comatose, patient basically, and then Daenerys ends up killing him because she doesn't want him to suffer anymore. Okay. And so then this, sparks a sequence where there's now this massive bonfire. She's burning Cal's body to say goodbye. It's like their tradition or whatever. And she ties that woman who killed her baby to the fire, and then that lady burns alive, right? Dark show, bit intense. And then Daenerys, I don't remember exactly what her words are, but right before going into the fire, she says, I have to do this. I want to do this. And then she says something along the lines of dragons won't burn. And this isn't the first time it was said in the show, right? But when does Daenerys know that she's going to be fine? Or was she trying to kill herself? Because out of this, right, I'm pretty sure it's one of the last scenes of the season, she's like, it's the next day, the fire's gone, and she wakes up naked with like the 3 dragons, right? And I just like, in my head, I don't know, like I don't know if she knew that was gonna happen, but maybe my like, I just, for me, that introduction, like the first introduction to magic, kind of happened out of nowhere. But I also think that that's the whole point. Like, It's this whole massive universe. Stuff is happening left and right all the time, and I think that this is just an example of where I think she maybe knew that wasn't gonna happen, or she was like, my baby died, my husband died, I have nothing else to live for. I'm just gonna kill myself in the fire with them both with the dragon eggs, and then it turns out that she is worthy. She is, a Targaryen. She has the dragon blood, and those three dragons are now bonded to her through that fire. I think for me, like that made sense, but I feel like there was, again, I like that there's zero clarification because that makes sense within the world that they built, but I also just don't love the less clarification. That was a big rant to basically say like it was okay. Um, so maybe that was kind of a complaint. Just the introduction to that witch and the sorcery there was a bit interesting. I think the only characters, yeah, that I really like are the Starks. I think the Starks, except for Sansa, bro. Like come on, like what are we doing, dude? I'm like what? Anyway, so um, I don't know if I have much more to say. Like it was good. I liked it. I think I think the action is pretty solid. I really did like the plot of this first season though, where Ned was supposed to kind of hunt down or kind of scope. I think kind of scope out the corruption going on at King's Landing, basically. I hated Robert, so I'm not mad that he's dead. But how he died was a bit underwhelming. But again, I also like the realism. Same thing how I said with Cal and that wound kind of getting crazy infected, where it's like it's still supposed to be like real life, right? Like some people can just die from like they don't have to be some crazy big battle. It can just be some unfortunate hunting trip, right? He went hunting for a boar. Boar got the best of him. You know what I mean? Like I do also like that element too, and also how Ned he got stabbed through the leg at one point, right? In this season, and you can see that it affects him for the rest of the season. Like again, I like that it is like real. Like he's limping for the rest of like it's a massive wound inflicted and they treat that very seriously. Same with Bran. Like another big positive I have is he gets pushed off that window, off that ledge at the beginning of the show by the fuck ass Lannisters and he's paralyzed. Right? Like there's real consequences to these people's actions. People die. Ned died. And I'm really sad about that. But like it's you know what I mean? Like I like that is the realism of the world. Like there are consequences to actions and Star Wars could take a hint. So I like that too. But I think for the most part, that's all I really have to say about it. I really enjoyed it. I had a really good time watching it. I'm excited for season two. Another big positive I have is that season two basically takes place right after where season one left off. There's no like crazy time skip. I expected maybe some summarization of stuff that happened, but it's essentially almost like there's just another episode. And I really enjoy that. Did not like it when Stranger Things had a time jump every single season. Like I don't like how it's like every season's like a story anymore. I like that this is just one supposed to be one big story. And I know they fucked up the ending or whatever because again, how could you not know that? It's such a cultural behemoth. But like I really enjoy that it's just one long cohesive story. And so this next episode, at least for season two, is just a continuation of season one, which, you would think, right? So I like that a lot too. But I like so far I'd probably give this first season of Game of Thrones like a 7 out of 10, maybe 8 out of 10. I don't particularly like again, it's not I'm not at the point yet where I'm like, oh my god, this is the best piece of fiction I've ever seen, but I'm definitely really enjoying it. This is where I'm at. I've heard crazy stuff about it, you know what I mean? And I did really it did get really good yesterday when I was chilling at the hospital. I was like, man, this shit's just good. But maybe yeah, probably I'll settle for a 7 out of 10. I think I really enjoyed it, but I don't think it's my favorite thing ever yet. So yeah, I think that's about it. See ya.